Marcy, Skylight, Gray, Cliff, and Redfield done. Now the long walk back to the lodge. 3:55 a.m., just signed in. Santanoni Range, let's go. The wind is whipping here in the Seward Range today. Just finished the Macomb slide and my legs are on fire. Well, I fell victim to the floating logs again. Made it to the top of East Dix. Peak number 3 of 5 for today here in the Dix Range. Avalanche Pass. On top of Rocky Peak Ridge. It's like a hurricane up here. Rain and wind here on Tabletop. Whiteface, number 6. Muddy day here on Street and Nye for number 7 and 8. Sunny and blue on Haystack. Algonquin, up in the clouds, number 18. Gothics, number 22. Panther, number 38. Allen, number 45. 7:12 a.m. Big Slide, Adirondack 46er. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast. January 27th, 2019. Hurricane Mountain, a major fan favorite in the Adirondack Park, even rated Best Mountain in New York by Outside Magazine in 2019. And they're not wrong. This is an incredible mountain, start to finish, that offers a little bit of everything and ends with an awesome Adirondack fire tower. Josh and I planned to hike this peak the night before, so in classic 4:30 crew fashion, we got an early start. Though not as early as usual, since we were only hiking this one peak, as opposed to going out into the high peaks. So my alarm went off at 4 a.m., and I picked Josh up at 5 a.m., and we drove from Lake Placid to the trailhead in between Keene and Keene Valley on Route 9, where we hiked via the southern approach. The trailhead parking is along the side of the road, and it's easily missed, so you got to be looking out for it. But it's not far past the Baxter Mountain Trailhead and the Baxter Mountain Tavern. Great spot to grab some food after a hike over there. So we pulled up to the trailhead and parked the car, prepped our gear, closed the van door, and started hiking towards the woods as we climbed up and over the huge pile of snow, courtesy of the local plow trucks. Into the woods we went. Adventure awaits. Hurricane Mountain, via the southern approach, is roughly 7 miles round trip with just over 2,000 feet of elevation gain. The mountain boasts almost every type of Adirondack terrain in one jam-packed hike. Huge high peaks caliber views on its enormous rocky summit, with a classic Adirondack fire tower to put it over the top, is one of the best hikes in the entire Adirondack Park. A mountain worth visiting over and over again. We clicked on our headlamps and signed into the trailhead, the first on the day for sure. Right from the start, the trail begins climbing for the first half a mile or so. And since this newer trail is so popular and well-traveled, as it was only cut in 2014, the trail today was one of those typical winter sidewalks. A well-packed, probably 24-inch across, smooth, perfect trail that made for a very fast hike. No rocks and roots to deal with because the snow had filled in all those gaps, so we went quickly up this crunchy little winter sidewalk. We had our snowshoes on our packs, but we didn't need them to start the day, and we figured we may need them up towards the summit, though. About half a mile in, we made it to the now frozen, marshy Beaver Ponds area. The trail skirts around the right side of it via some wooden plank bridges, which were buried in snow on this day, but you could still see where they are. Great scenery at this point, too, in the hike, with the mountains in the background and this pond in the foreground. We continued hiking through the open woods, surrounded by trees without their leaves, as the trail maintains a nice constant ascent, with some steeper moments, but the majority of the time being a nice gradual, but still very constant elevation gain. Josh and I were making good time as we kept our pace throughout the hike, never needing to slow down or stop because our pace was exactly what it should be today. It was an extremely windy day, so we were extra cautious since at any point the wind could easily blow down any one of the hundreds of trees all around us. And then we came to one section at the turnaround of a switchback. Josh and I both came to a stop as we were looking around, looking in the forest at all the trees and the enormous burst of wind that was currently blowing these trees like twigs. And then we immediately picked up our pace. We even started running up the trail at one point to clear this very specific section of trees that were being tossed around by the wind like an inflatable tube dancer at a used car dealership. It was a wild sight, and one of those situations where trouble can easily occur at the blink of an eye, so we got out of there pretty quickly. When you're walking in the forest, especially on a windy day, you got to remember to look up every so often and look for those widowmakers, as they're called. Just huge branches and sometimes whole trees just hanging by a tree above. All you need is the wind to blow and then that thing come down on top of you. hence the term Widowmaker. Soon the wind died down slightly, and we came to a meadow-type area that I remembered well from hiking this mountain back in the spring of 2018. It's a great spot not far from the first lookout ledge. And this trail involves a lot of switchbacks at various points, so it helps make the climb enjoyable for the old heart and lungs as well. Another reason this hike is the whole package and was rated the best in New York. We passed through the meadow and continued to climb this hard-packed, snowy, sidewalk-like mountain trail. Around 3 miles in, maybe less, we came to the first big ledge, and so did the wind. This ledge gives you great views on a clear day, as well as views of the fire tower and the hurricane summit up in the distance, which from here looks a lot further away than it actually is, and we were being pelted with snow and wind. Meanwhile, Josh and I are both still wearing our base layers, wind pants, gaiter, and winter hat. So after we passed over this ledge and got back into the tree line as fast as we could, sheltered from the wind, we decided we needed to gear up for the summit. We both knew the trail continued up in the tree line before going back out onto the open ledge, so we continued hiking for a few minutes before finding a good place to stop and gear up for that final summit push. So we dropped our packs and suited up. I put on an EMS mid-layer fleece and a nice thin but very warm down jacket. You know, one of those jackets that can be stuffed into its own pocket, being a perfect size for a hiking pack. Love that jacket. Along with a rain shell on top. I also switched to a new, less sweaty pair of gloves, and I was ready for the summit. Meanwhile, Josh was ready to go, and right before we started, he stopped to put on his face protection, which was a neck warmer and ski goggles. Damn, I wish I had those too. So I told Josh he didn't need them and to let me use them instead, which he of course didn't bite. Oh well. So I simply put on my hood, zipped the coat all the way, pulled the drawstring on my hood so you could barely even see my face anyways, and I was ready to face the 60-mile-an-hour winds that awaited us on top of that beautiful, open, rocky summit. We carried on up the trail, ready for the elements that awaited us, passing the junction where the trail up from Crow's Clearing meets up with our trail, and just before the final turn before heading out onto the open summit, we took a minute to prepare and out we went. About to go into the storm here. Onward. And the wind was intense. So loud and heavy that we couldn't really yell to each other because we couldn't hear one another, and we couldn't see much in front of us either because this was total whiteout situation with the wind whipping snow and ice everywhere. Then suddenly an enormous gust of wind blew both Josh and I a good 3 feet to our sides at the same exact time. And we both weigh over 200 pounds, so that gives you a good idea of the type of wind we had on the summit today. Thankfully, for the most part, the wind was blowing in the direction onto the summit, so if the wind was coming from the other side, blowing us towards the cliff, we could have had a seriously dangerous scenario on our hands. Not that it wasn't already, but much more so. We pushed forward as we scrambled up the summit towards the fire tower, the 60-mile-an-hour winds blowing hard and whipping ice into the side of my face. I had to hike with my right eye closed because the wind was destroying my right cheek and that whole right side of my face since it never let up, and I couldn't keep my eye open. And then we finally made it to the base of the fire tower, looked up at the top as it towered over us like a skyscraper, examining what it would take right now to climb to the top of that monster, and then we both gave each other a look. And like we were in each other's brains in unison, we both said, "Nope." Shook our heads no as we touched the fire tower and immediately began the trip back over the summit to get back inside the tree line as fast as possible. It was a very quick 30-second summit stay on this day, and for good reason, as we stood 3,678 feet up in the windy Adirondack sky for Lake Placid Winter 9'er number 7 of 9. Pure ADK is an online community and lifestyle brand that creates Adirondack-inspired apparel and goods. They're all about sharing their adventures and creating quality products that are a reflection of the outdoor lifestyle and activities we love in the Adirondack Mountains. Whether born and raised an Adirondack native or a frequent vacationer, we all have a common bond, those feelings and memories that the Adirondacks evoke in us. As a bonus for listeners of the podcast, they're providing a 15% off discount. When shopping in their online store, use the promo code 46podcast to redeem the offer. PureAdirondacks.com. Check it out. 46 Podcast. Pure ADK. Exploration unbound. The wind continued to whip us around, back and forward, left and right, and we methodically chose our steps as we backtracked the rocky summit, climbing up and over the ledges, going from ledge to ledge, up and over the rocks, over this way, over that way. Finally, we made it back inside the tree line. Whoa, that was an adventure, I said to Josh as we started back down the trail, away from the summit and away from the raw wind. From here, in typical fashion, we were booking it down the trail, and before we knew it, we made it back to that first ledge where we saw the fire tower in the distance earlier. And we prepared ourselves and quickly went onto the ledge, out into the windy Adirondack sky, as the wind whipped snow and ice at us for that little portion of time we're out in the open. And then we were back in the tree line. Shortly after this point, we passed our first set of humans on the day, a couple of French-Canadian women. We chatted for a short moment and warned them of the heavy winds to come. There was definitely a slight language barrier, but I'm pretty sure they understood what we were telling them, though they did a lot of that whole smile and nodding thing, which is very polite, so I don't really know, but hopefully it was okay. Hopefully they kind of had an idea. I'm sure they did. We then carried on, past the meadow, down the winter sidewalk-like trail, past the beaver pond and towards the trailhead. Just as we approached the trailhead, we passed another group, a couple of local guys starting for the day, who were actually really excited for the wind up top. It was definitely a wild experience, as it always is in wind that strong. And then we made it back to the trailhead. We signed out and headed towards the car. An exciting day on Hurricane, a mountain who lived up to its name today, that's for sure. I can't say enough good things about this peak, especially hiking from this southern approach. There's another trailhead from Crow's Clearing, but I've yet to hike in that direction. But this southern approach is just fantastic, and I can't recommend it enough. Another successful hurricane-like winter day on Hurricane Mountain, the best hike in New York according to Outside Magazine, and according to yours truly as well. For Lake Placid Winter 9'er number 7 of 9. The 60-mile-an-hour winds didn't stop us from reaching the summit, though it certainly made for a unique and memorable winter woods experience. Next time on 46 of 46, I'll finish off my Winter 9'er just days before the March 20th cutoff date. Almost quitting winter hiking mid-hike altogether due to some unfortunate and obnoxious circumstances. But that's next time on 46 of 46. Remember to always leave no trace, do the rock hop, and if you carry it in, carry it out. See you on the trails. Looking for a way to commemorate your Adirondack hiking experiences? The 46ers collection from 46ers.com is a great way to do exactly that. Their unique lapel pins for each of the 46 high peaks make great keepsakes or gifts. Check them out at 46ers.com. That's 46ers.com.